May I speak to you in the name of God, who is Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. Have any of you ever been truly hopeless? Not just things aren't going well right now, or this one thing might not work, but truly hopeless. I fortunately haven't been at that spot, so I can't really imagine what it's like, but I've had some of those individual moments where things seem to have lost hope, but everything else is pretty good. So it's really hard for me to fully comprehend that spot, that place of hopelessness. But as I was thinking about these readings, I was reminded of a couple having to do with my ordination and finding a church in our diocese. When I was a senior in seminary, the last interview I had before ordination, about, maybe 10, 12 people and myself, all of them asking questions. And at the end of the interview, the guy who was supposed to be kind of my shepherd, my biggest supporter on that committee, the person who I had been in contact with the most, the one who I thought really had my back, turns to me, and the last question I got was, "So Patrick, if we decide not to push you forward for ordination, what do you think you would do?" Now I knew everything was fine. It was the end of the process. It was all fine. But still, my insides just dropped for a moment. If you don't know, I have a bachelor's degree in philosophy and a master's degree in divinity. I'm not suited for anything else. 7 years towards this. At least 7 years. 7 years of schooling. So in that moment, just for that second, before my brain kicked in and I realized they're just trying to see my response, all that. It's the Commission on Ministry, so they really can't make that decision anyway. It's up to the bishop, all that stuff. But for that moment, everything seemed taken away. I had a family back home I could move back in with, figure everything out, get started all over, all that. So it wasn't true hopelessness. But in that one area of my life, that thing that I had kind of yoked myself to, put all my eggs were in one basket, felt like it was being taken away. Again, just that one thing, and I had all this other stuff, this other support, so it wasn't true hopelessness. That same year, around the same thing, when you're a seminarian, you can't look for jobs outside of your diocese without your bishop's permission. And in about February of that year, I think, Bishop Wolf came to visit me at VTS, and one of the first things she told me was that there were no jobs in Rhode Island, so she was releasing me to look elsewhere if I wanted. So again, all those thoughts and dreams of coming back to this place and being a priest in this place just seemed gone. A month or so later, a bigger church in the diocese came up with an assistant position. So I interviewed for it, sent in my application, didn't interview for it, and didn't even get to the interviews. Just heard back, "We're not going to go with you." So I had that kind of burst of hope, and it was taken away. Again, had all this other stuff, 100 and some odd dioceses in the Episcopal Church, not true hopelessness, just that one little thing taken away. A couple months later, as you're all well aware, another big church in the diocese created an assistant position. That one worked out. But for those moments, I had that sinking feeling inside. Last week we talked about how, when Paul was saying how it was the Corinthians who were restrained in their affections, not him, how the real wording was that they were restrained in their bowels. I mean, it was that inner gut just dropping out. But I had all this other support, all these other options outside of that. So it wasn't the true hopelessness that we hear about in today's gospel. But they're kind of the closest things I can think. This thing that I have looked forward to for so long, that I have dreamed for myself, that I feel is what I'm supposed to be doing, seemingly taken away. We hear about Jairus this morning. His daughter is sick and not doing well, at the point of death. And you can imagine he has tried everything, like the lady with the hemorrhages. He has tried everything, done all he could, and nothing is working. And he hears about Jesus probably, and who knows if he believes or not, but he hears that this guy's here who helps the blind to see, the lame to walk, the possessed are set free, who brings health and life wherever he goes. And whether or not he believes, he goes out to this man and he falls down. And we hear he begs on the ground repeatedly. He doesn't just go up and ask him and say, hey, can you come help me out? And Jesus says yes. He has to fall on the ground and beg repeatedly. And Jesus gets him up and they start going to his house. But on the way, they get messengers from his house and they say, don't bother him anymore. Your daughter's dead. I can't imagine that hopelessness. I've got my own little spots, like I said, but I would have gotten by. I can't imagine just how lost he must have been in that moment. If he really understood the next words that Jesus told him or not, or if he just kept going on autopilot. I don't know. Maybe some of you know that level of hopelessness. I hope not. I pray not. But maybe you do. But what we hear is that even in those deepest, darkest moments, Jesus is there with us. And he says to us, do not be afraid, only believe. In our darkest, loneliest moments, he is there with us. He loves us so much that he will not leave us alone at those times. He comforts us with those words. Do not be afraid. Only believe. And as we hear, he brings along Peter, James, and John, and Jairus. And they get there, and everyone laughs at them, and he kicks them out. And the girl's all right, and he brings her back. As hopeless as we might feel, as dark as the world might seem, what we're told in today's gospel is that Jesus stays with us. That Jesus tells us, don't be afraid. Just believe. It is a wonderful message, a hopeful message. But it can be a dangerous one as well if we leave it just as that. If Jesus' message to us we just leave in our darkest moments, don't be afraid, only believe. We could take it to mean when things are bad, just come sit on one of these red cushions, and pray about it, and have faith it'll be taken care of. That's not what Jesus is telling us. That's why I love that this other story is in the middle of this one. We hear about this woman who had been bleeding for 12 years. Nothing she did worked, kind of similar to Jairus. She was just getting worse and worse. She had spent everything she had. Like Jairus, she was probably also at that hopeless point. But she also heard about Jesus. She also heard about the amazing things he was doing, and she went out. And she had faith that if she could just get close enough to touch his clothes, she would be made well. And she does it, and she is made well. And when Jesus figures everything out and gets to talk to her, what he tells her is that your faith has saved you. Your faith has healed you. Your faith has made you well. It's not faith as in come sit on these red cushions and believe you'll be made well. But her faith was action. Her faith was getting up and going out to Jesus and reaching out, grabbing on. It wasn't just praying for Jesus wherever he was to take care of it. It was her going out and making sure it happened. We need these two statements together. We can't just gather in here and pray for everything to be taken care of. Not much will probably happen. You guys heard the joke about the man in the flood? Gets the evacuation order, rains are coming down, creeks rising, all that. Someone comes by in a truck and says, let's go. And he says, no, I'm going to pray to God to save me from this. The truck goes. Waters rise, so he goes to the next level. Someone comes by in a canoe, says, come on, let's go. Says, nope, I'm praying to God. God is going to save me. Waters continue to rise. He's on the roof. A helicopter comes by. Same thing happens. He's lost in the flood. And when he gets to heaven, he asks God, why didn't you save me? I prayed. He said, well, I sent a truck, canoe, a helicopter. Our prayer, our faithfulness has to be met with action. That's what these two stories are telling us. Yes, we're not to be afraid, we are to believe. But that belief, that faith needs to send us out like that woman who had been bleeding for 12 years. Needs to send us out looking for the cure, looking for what is going to fix our problems. We can't hole ourselves up in here expecting it to be fixed because we're saying the right words. On the flip side, we can't just go out and continue to give and give and give of ourselves trying to fix all the problems that we see in the world. We will get burnt out. We will lose strength. We will lose hope. Our action needs to be anchored in our faith. Prayer C in our Eucharistic prayers commends to us not to come to this table for solace only. You need to help me, I always forget these words. Not just for renewal, but for strength. To send us back out. Faith and action go together. Without each other, they're not really going to work. That's what the whole book of James is about. We just read it a few weeks ago in the Bible Challenge. You can't show off your faith without works. But with our works, we can show how alive our faith is. Without faith, our works are going to wear us down. Our works are going to tire us out and bleed us dry. But without works, our faith is going to wither and die. We need to not be afraid, to just have faith. And we need to take part in our faith setting us free, our faith saving us, our faith curing us. It's not one or the other. It's both. Come sit on these red cushions. Say these words. But let these words strengthen you. Let these words feed you. Lift you up. Bring you hope. So that we can go out those doors proclaiming the gospel. Go out those doors ready to work at building God's kingdom here and now. Let what we do here lift you up so that you can go out there and join in the work of transforming this world that sometimes seems like a nightmare back into the dream that God originally intended for it. Amen.